Experience the highs and lows of the inspiring success stories we highlight. Allow the experiences and the examples of our guests to lift and inspire you out of the past or future. Hello and welcome. I'm Jennifer Annenberg and this is the Jennifer Now Show. I wanted to thank our friends, first of all, at the Celestial for having us and hosting us at this beautiful location. It's a gorgeous skyline, and if you need a place to eat or just want to go a place to see the skyline, remember the Celestial. Thank you to our friends here. Today I have a special treat. We have Dr. William Barrett, who is a phenomenal radiologist, oncologist. That's very hard to say, but he is our Cincinnati's very own. He is a founder of the Barrett Center. He is also, I have to have the cheat sheet here because there's so many things he has founded here in Cincinnati. He's founder of a mobile prostate cancer screening program, a cancer education day programs, the Cincinnati Cancer Consortium, the Primary Care Physician Forums, the Bearcats Against Cancer Organization, and the UC Greater Cincinnati Genitourinary, which I needed your help with.
Genitourinary.
Yes, conference, amongst other things. So I just wanted to welcome Dr. Bill Barrett. So thank you so much for coming.
Thanks, Jennifer. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you. He truly is one of Cincinnati's finest. And I wanted to start off by asking, for those who do not know what the Barrett Center is, if you have been in Cincinnati, I'm sure you do, but for those of us who don't know what the Barrett Center is, explain, what is the Barrett Center?
Sure. The Barrett Cancer Center is the outpatient cancer facility affiliated with the University Hospital. And so it's a three-story building that focuses on care of patients with all types of cancers. And we have delivery of radiation therapy for some cancers, infusion of chemotherapy for some cancers. We have imaging for breast cancer. And we have a number of subspecialists who work there on a daily basis that are physicians who have expertise in particular areas and interact very well with each other. So we have groups of physicians who see patients with newly diagnosed cancers and then together as a team render a recommendation for what kind of treatment they think the patient should have. Some of the patients stay there for treatment. Many go back to wherever they were seen initially, at a community hospital or a community physician's office, and have the treatment there. Within the city, we're tremendously fortunate to have a number of wonderful physicians, nurses, facilities. And the goal of the Cancer Center is by no means for everyone to have to come there for treatment, but we want to be a resource for the whole community. So people can come, they have complicated problems, or come for reassurance or second opinions or recommendations, where often they'll go back to where they started for the actual treatment.
Okay, and then I guess my question would be, it's children as well, children and adults that are combined, so they're intermixed with the adults.
That's right. The kids that come for radiation treatment for cancer are right together with the adults that receive radiation treatment. The children that receive chemotherapy and surgery are over at Children's Hospital, and we go over there to visit the kids and to make recommendations as far as their treatment.
So how did this start? What was the impetus for this whole organization? I mean, how much a part did you have in it, and how did it start? What's the story? We wonder the story.
Well, historically, the university has been very strong in cancer care and diagnosis for a number of years. And my father actually was a radiologist back in the days when radiologists both delivered therapeutic radiation for cancer and read x-rays as diagnostic radiologists. But his primary interest was in radiation treatment for cancer, and wanted to pull all the different resources of the university together into one building to have all the expertise.
Because before they were all, everyone had to go to different things?
Correct.
Oh, that definitely would make sense, yeah.
That's right. And so he had the concept for it. And it's 23 years ago that the building was actually constructed, and since then has grown in scope and expertise. And we're tremendously fortunate in the city to have a lot of fabulous physicians and personnel dealing with cancer. At the university, we have people who specialize in particular cancer types, and so have particular expertise and are more than happy to share that with the community.
Are we one of the few cities that have this, or the only city that have it?
Most academic medical centers have something like this, and the university is the only academic medical center in the region, but other large cities have academic medical centers that have similar concepts.
Well, I think we're so lucky because it's rare that some of us don't have someone that is affected by cancer. I mean, there's a family member or a roommate or sister or someone that just has cancer. Right. Is there a statistic now?
Well, 45% of all men will develop a cancer in their lifetime, and 35% of all women will develop a cancer in their lifetime.
Staggering.
And Yeah, so obviously it's tremendously common, as you said. Everyone is close to someone with cancer, if not themselves. And obviously nobody wants the diagnosis of cancer, but if you have to have it, we want Cincinnati to be the best place to be. We want to be able to look somebody in the eye, tell them they'll get as good a care here as any place in the world.
45% of men? That is staggering. That's almost half the population.
Yeah, that's right.
And is there an age that you have that?
Well, in general, most cancers become more common as you age. And so age is the single biggest risk factor for developing cancer. It becomes more and more common with age. There are some cancers that are predominantly in younger people, but most cancers occur as people get more into their 40s and 50s and 60s and 70s and 80s.
That tends to be the general. Okay, so what is your recommendation for keeping the C away, keeping the cancer word away?
Well,
what do you recommend?
Obviously, things that you can control are some aspects of your environment, your diet, and your exercise. Obviously important. Like everything else in life, developing cancer is some combination of genetics and environment, and we all have some genetic predisposition or some genetic prevention. There's nothing we can do about. We just have or don't have. With environment, though, clearly there are a lot of things. Obviously, smoking, don't even think about it. Chewing tobacco. There's a lot of things that in the environment that probably are carcinogenic that aren't recognized yet, realizing that it wasn't until the late 1950s that the definite association between cigarette smoking and lung cancer was made, and so presumably 50 years from now there'll be a lot of things that are identified to avoid.
And what do you feel about people be doing what they love or feeling happy? I mean, do you think that there's some connection there that really happy people, or is there no way to test that, obviously?
It's so hard to know. It's so hard to know. And for years people have thought that that stress predisposes to cancer, that the increased cortisol levels that are secreted may be immunosuppressive and may allow cancers to occur. But the fact that cancer is so common and it's so multifactorial and it's so hard to know all the things that you eat and drink and breathe, it's hard to factor that in, but presumably it's important.
I mean, but is it true to say that our lives have become more stressful, or is that you can't really say that? And hence then the rise in cancer?
Probably so, and also just as people are not dying of other causes, that there's so much better treatment for heart disease these days and for infectious disease that, considering that in the year 1900, the main cause of mortality in the United States was tuberculosis. And it's not a very common disease these days. So as people live longer because they don't die of other causes, they have an opportunity, if you will, to develop cancer. Cancer screening can be important for some cancers. As an example, in the year 1900, cervical cancer was the second leading cause of cancer death in American women. Now it's not in the top 10 because of the benefit of pap smears and cancer screening.
And diet. I mean, our diet is terrible in this country. I mean, I don't know what to say about that, and I would surely think that has something. But then again, I don't know. I mean, people don't like to blame and put things on. They say the hormones in this or the hormones in the meat or the milk or whatever. But what do you believe? Do you believe any of that?
There has to be importance to it, considering that Japanese women have very low incidence of breast cancer. They come to this country, their incidence goes up. And their daughters born in this country have the same incidence of breast cancer as non-Japanese American women. So there must be something environmental.
Must be something. Yeah. And how about you? Do you live a certain lifestyle knowing that and seeing the things that you do?
Well, I exercise regularly, try to have a good diet, but most importantly, I appreciate it every day.
That's great.
Yeah, I mean, the realization is that we're all going to face, some disease at some point or some trauma or whatever. And that's one thing about having the privilege of working around people that are fighting this disease, is that, first of all, it's just amazing the courage that people show on a daily basis. As terrible as this disease is, so often brings out the very best in human nature. The courage that people show is unbelievable, and the people that are close to them, their family members and their friends of support. In many respects, it brings out a lot of the best in human nature. But I really appreciate every breathing moment just from knowing how lucky we are to be in good health.
Awesome. And this leads me to a great question, because you do get to see so many people that are struggling with their very existence. I mean, every day, every hour is could be their last hour. What lessons have you learned from that you could say? I mean, you say the courage to live. That is absolutely. I mean, and for some people, we don't even know. We don't even know we just take it for granted. Oh, we've got decades to live and
absolutely
find our passion in life. And
absolutely, and the reality is that we are all, and appropriately so, in a case of denial relative to our own mortality. I mean, none of us ever think about whether it's 5 years or 10 years, or we assume it's way down the road.
Right.
And so we don't even think about it, and that's great, because presumably if you did think about it, it might have a deleterious effect.
Yeah.
When someone has a cancer that appears to be localized and potentially curable, then our absolute goal is to do everything we can to get rid of that cancer with as little morbidity or toxicity as possible to the person. When somebody has a situation where their disease, unfortunately, is not curable, if it's widespread, for instance, then people do have a sense of their own mortality, and that's where we really emphasize doing everything we can to make that time, however long it is, as good as possible. And people will sometimes comment that they developed a whole new appreciation for life and for their family when they were developed with this, when they were diagnosed with this disease, that they appreciated things they had and they spent time with people they wouldn't otherwise have.
Oh, wow.
And so nobody wants this disease for sure, and there's a way to prevent it, obviously prevent it. If you have to have it, we want to do anything we can to get life back to normal afterwards. If somebody does have a situation where it's not curable, then those final days, whether it's a week or a month or a year, wind up obviously being tremendously important to the person going through it, but also to their family members and their close friends, that those memories are etched permanently. And so those circumstances, how it goes, is a big part of what's now being called, palliative care. And it's tremendously important that people aren't physically suffering, that they're comfortable, and that the people feel like they are supported, and a lot of times they have the opportunity to interact with family members and friends in a way they otherwise wouldn't have.
Well, is it hard for you to remain sort of third person? I mean, I know as a physician you probably have to keep that cap on a lot, but is it hard not to be involved sometimes when you really like someone,
Absolutely, and I tell all the people that work with us, and one of the, as an aside, one of the great aspects to the working where we work is that we have these trainees, we have these residents and medical students and college students and therapy students and nursing students, and so it's a great atmosphere, these bright, young, curious people that are always asking why something's being done a certain way, and that helps ensure it's being done correctly, and everybody gets smarter every day by being able to answer those questions. But one of the things that we emphasize to the people that work with us is that every patient is your relative, and every patient is your friend, and we never ever get in any kind of an argument with the patient. That just doesn't happen. I mean, we are there to be as empathetic and supportive however possible, and no question we get very close to people. But the same way, if your family member eventually passes away, still, you want the circumstances to be as good as they can possibly be, just with the reality that everybody's going to face it someday, and so there's no question. I mean, it's hard, and particularly, there's nothing good about kids having cancer, or young people, or young parents.
Does it make you live differently? You live differently, literally, because of what you do?
Much more appreciative, no question. I mean, I don't complain about anything.
But when you want to, life still has hard things, right? And so.
Yeah, but
it's hard to complain, though, isn't
because it? The context is that I think the perception obviously is so important, and perspective, and just seeing what really is important and what's not so important, and in life and death obviously is very important.
Yeah. What inspires you? Is it your patient, or do you have life outside that?
Well, it's such a privilege to be able to help people. It's such an important time in their life. And to know that our team can make a huge difference in somebody being cured or not being cured, somebody having a lot in the way of side effects or not having side effects, somebody being comfortable and relatively content with the way things go towards the end, if you will. So the privilege that comes with that is tremendously gratifying.
Yeah. But how do you find time? Because I read some of this list of stuff, and then you volunteer your time, and you get sawed in half. But you did that for it's just a funny story how you volunteered to get sawed in half for money and charity and all this stuff. But how do you find time? Because I know already physicians' hours, long hours. You run the center. You are the chief. All this stuff. But And you have all these other organizations. How do you find balance? Or does this propel you to do more because you're so passionate about it? You've really found a passion here.
Yeah, I mean, it's busy for sure. There's no question. I do have one hobby.
What's that?
Coaching. I love coaching kids. Yeah, and so right now we're in the middle of the Cougar football season.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a blast.
Go Cougars.
And it occurred to me not too long ago that maybe part of the reason that's so attractive is that there's no question. I mean, there is a lot of sadness with what we see on a daily basis. And dealing with these kids, it's a complete opposite. These kids are bright-eyed and they're raring to go, and just a blast being around them.
Yeah. And I think to someone who's maybe watching and thinking, wow, I'm trying to find my passion or purpose, or I found it and I just got a setback and I'm wanting to, I think, what advice would you give them because of your life experience and what the people you deal with? What would you say?
Well, I think that everybody has unrealized potential. There's no question about that. And you're only going to live once. And so obviously it's trite to say, but you make the most of every day. And but I think that the advice that, I have 3 kids that'll be thinking about careers before too long here. Yeah. And I so much want them to do something that they're passionate about, where, going to work for me does not feel like going to work. It is long hours for sure. But, never watch a clock. It's the day's over already.
Never watch a clock, yeah. Someone said to me that as you look at a gravestone, your life is the hyphen, that's it. There's a born date, an end date, and then your life is that teeny little hyphen. That's it.
Right.
So go and get out there and enjoy it.
That's right.
And it's interesting because also the hardest thing is sometimes knowing, what do I want? What do I want to do?
Right.
And who am I? And all this stuff.
Right.
Who has time?
Right.
Did you know from the beginning what you wanted to do? Did you know that you had this passionate nature to care for people and how especially?
I wasn't sure. My father was a physician, and so it certainly crossed my mind growing up that might be interesting. And I got a job at the old Cincinnati General Hospital during the summers during college, working as an orderly.
And saw, an orderly?
Yeah.
Oh,
and that was
glamorous.
It was a great perspective, and I still think about some of the people I worked with. I think about a fellow named George McDaniel, who was an orderly and was able to calm anyone. He was a fellow who, when people would come in all kinds of different states, he could calm. I guarantee he could walk in the zoo and calm a lion. Amazing. And I tried to emulate a lot of things I learned from him. And I saw people who were orderlies who had not had the means to pursue further education, but would have been wonderful physicians. And a lot of times I feel like I'm kind of representing them with the work that I try to do. Within a field of medicine, when I went to medical school, I wound up being attracted to this field because it is so important when somebody has a life-threatening disease and the stakes are very high. And I felt like that I could be a help with the people and their families.
Yeah. What do you want to be known for? What is your legacy of all these things that you do?
Being as helpful as possible to people. And it's just such a privilege to see people at such an important time in their life and to often be able to have a positive impact. And then there's a natural teamwork that comes with the people that all are the same mindset working together. And so it's a great camaraderie that the people they have the privilege to take care of people.
I notice you say we all the time. You definitely have that team mentality. Yeah. It's wonderful, absolutely wonderful. I also want to know, do you think that success has a formula? Did you find that you had a formula, or did you just find that you fell into sort of step A, step B, step C? Because people would look at you and say, now he's successful.
Well, thanks.
Did you have a formula, or did you just do?
I think that growing up, our family, I'm the youngest of 6 kids, and our parents were wonderful, and our parents instilled in us that we should have drive, and my dad was a wonderful example, a wonderful role model, and my mom was the kind of person that if you told her you just committed murder, she would say that's okay. There's nothing you can do wrong, and so it's a great combination. Our dad was more of the kind of the old school, no excuses, and you're expected to live up to a standard, and it was a great combination, and both of them were wonderful role models.
And is that what you do with your children as well?
Try to.
A little bit of combination of that?
Try to.
And when they have they found, are they old enough where they know what they want to do, or you said you
not yet. We have 2 in college, 1 in high school.
Oh, so they're, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, back to the Barrett Center as well. This is your real passion, no? This is your real passion. When you say that you deal with children, that is the saddest of all, what pulls you through that time? What is it that helps you to?
Well, just realizing that that if somebody is in this difficult situation, somebody's child, has cancer, then first of all, the good news is that the childhood cancers in general have a higher cure rate. Acute lymphoblastic leukemia is the most common childhood and cancer, common cancer in childhood. And 50 years ago, essentially nobody was cured of that disease. And now the cure rate is well over 80%, not 100% yet, but still. And so to be able to contribute to a good outcome is great. When it's not a good outcome, the reality is that that situation is going to happen for the people going through it no matter what. And so our role can be to try to lessen the difficulty as much as possible, realizing that by no means can you take it away, but still, I do think that the physicians, the nurses, the therapists, that everyone involved can still have a positive impact on helping as much as possible.
Yeah, and with children, I think when we all hear that, it's just that we feel like, oh God, it has to happen. But I think that overall, that's what you say, take the lessons from that and really, that it's living life and trying to find that happy medium and trying to find it and just live it.
That's right. I was, not long ago, there was someone who I become particularly close to and a young person that passed away. And in the hospital room, the day before the fellow passed away, his whole family was in there, and there were 15 people there all day, all night. And there was the sense that every single person in that room would have changed roles in a second.
Wow.
Just the ultimate and unselfish human behavior.
Wow.
And the father had said that there's really no silver lining in this. This is a young fellow with a young family, and that's not a silver lining, but still, in many respects, it brought out the very best in human nature, just in terms of how supportive his family was, and so. Our goal is to try to be helpful however possible, and it's gratifying when things go well. There are so many people who wind up that we see for years after they've been treated and they're fine, they've got families, and when it goes well, that's great. When it's not, it's kind of like in athletics, that when you have a role, as an offensive lineman in football. You don't expect to get the ball. You just do what you're told, and you carry out your duty, whatever it is. And that's kind of the same mentality.
Yeah, to the best of your ability.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I really think that story is perfect, because you don't want to say that there's a silver lining, but that the behaviors that it brings out and what it really does to people around, and that's the real story. And what it does to each physician and each person that you encounter. That life does make a difference, no matter what it encounters.
There's another fellow that I was particularly close with, who passed away recently, who had very, very advanced disease and was really almost comatose. And his son and wife took incredible care of him. And he very much wanted to come down to an event downtown, the Ride Cincinnati bike ride. He was He was an avid bicyclist.
It's a great cause, yeah.
A week before that, he was in a state that there's no way in the world that could possibly happen. And he was determined. And I'm telling you that no athlete, no one in the military service, no astronaut, no one could have shown more courage than he showed. He got down there.
He got down
there, and he couldn't have enjoyed it more.
Unbelievable.
And that was really as impressive human courage as you could ever see in any setting, I think.
And that's what I want to know. I want to end with a wonderful mind, or maybe someone who had that kind of. Did anyone that sort of lately that has beat the odds, or anyone that it's an incredible story that we could leave on a high note?
Yeah, absolutely. I saw someone this morning who 19 years ago was thought to have had incurable disease, And I saw her back today, and she's had the opportunity to raise her kids, and she is certainly cured, and has many great years ahead of her. And so when that happens, it's gratifying, and we get to feel like we're part of the family, because we get to know people so well and their families so well. It's such an important time in their lives.
Yeah, and we're really lucky because in Cincinnati, because of the Barrett Center, because of physicians like Dr. Barrett, and to have this integrated field really of physicians so that we can have the specialized services and so people can come and they can feel like they're really taken care of. And I think that's the thing. I think when people feel, it's all the feeling, if you really feel taken care of, I think it's just a different feeling. If you feel like you have to go helter-skelter and you don't know what you're doing and you have that constant anxiety, I think it doesn't do you or anyone else any good. And I think that's the key to feeling cared for in the city. And so I really think that this is a wonderful place to be. If you have, obviously if you don't want to have this to combat, but if you do, what a wonderful place to be. So. Yeah,
thanks. And what we see over there on a daily basis is just the ultimate and unselfish behavior on a daily basis among the people who work there, the family members and friends who bring people for treatment. It's the very best in human nature on a daily basis at many different levels.
They're there to serve, truly to serve. Yeah.
Right.
So I can't plug it enough, but I think that. If you haven't done it, if you want to have more research, I know they're online, and I just wanted to say thank you so much to Dr. Barrett, and we are very lucky here at Cincinnati. Another reason that we can be very, very grateful to be here in Cincinnati. So thank you to all, and thank you to Dr. Barrett.
Thanks so much, Jennifer.
Come find yourself. The world needs you, all of you. How long are you willing to wait? Are you ready?